And hello, welcome back to the 9th Live with Leverage product update webinar. This is Vila, and I'll be your host for today. I am joined with CSO Shashank Tiwari, who will be running this week's presentation. Also with us, we have CEO Bharath Rao and CTO Nirmal Gupta, and they will be hanging out with us and available to answer any questions. So there will be plenty of time for questions. Feel free to ask away at any time. You can throw your questions in the chat box here on YouTube. You can also go ahead and shoot us a message in the Telegram chat. And when we are ready for questions, I'll go ahead and relay them to the rest of the team. So that's about it. Let's go ahead and get started now. So handing it over to you, Shashank.
All right. Thank you, Vilo. Firstly, thanks for joining this webinar. It's another edition of update from our side. There's some fun stuff that we'll cover today. So let me just lay the ground for it and jump right in. So, thanks again to a lot of our beta testers who've been, helping us both enhance user experience for our application. At the same time, also point us towards some critical bugs as we continue to rapidly sort of develop and, evolve our platform and get ready, of course, for prime time and production release. So this one is really focused on the sort of the mechanics of the fee token, how you could get them in testnet, how does it play with staking, and then show you a few demos today so that when you go beyond this webinar and start trying it out, you know where to go to and what to do. Okay, so that's going to be the primary focus of this. Hopefully this will be exciting, and this will also be very helpful for everyone who's involved in any form of beta testing with us. Okay, so jumping right in, as I mentioned, here's the agenda. We will quickly first look at the staking app. That'll actually be a walkthrough or a demo where we look at how the staking app has improved or what are the additional things available in the staking app that you can now make use of. We'll jump right after learning more about the fee token, how you could get hold of it in testnet, how does it play with the platform, and then of course how the fee tokens and staking work together. And once we've covered all of this, I think we'll be ready to wrap up. Of course, there'll be time for this process and at the end as well. So first things first, staking app. So I think the best way to talk through this is really to just see it. So I'm going to just jump on to a demo of our current improved, if you may, or enhanced staking app, and walk you through some of the changes and show you what's new and what may be interesting for you folks. So jump right into the new staking app. For those who have been staking on our platform or playing with our staking app, they probably are familiar with something like this, because this is what our current staking app looks like. This is still the staking app in our sort of production environment, stake LEVERJ.io. But what you would see in the testnet environment, which is the stake-dropston.leverage.io, you'll start seeing the new staking app or the new improved staking app up there for you to play with, or up there for you to familiarize with. And of course, once we made a few more changes and this is completely polished, which we are getting very close to, this will get rolled out across the different staking environments, whether it's production, testing, develop, or any other that we need to expose. So the first part of the staking app really just brings forth sort of a little description, more like a disclaimer, but extremely helpful for someone who is at the staking app for the first time. Because if you just land straight onto this page, for a person who is staking for the first time, may not understand the implication of staking. Now, we are assuming, of course, that anybody who's staking is a LEV owner, because that's how you stake, and understands the staking economics. So, obviously, if they don't understand that, we encourage folks to go back to our previous webinars and look at a lot of discussion we've had around staking. Swap has covered some details about staking and the staking workflow and the economics behind it, and certainly look that up. You will benefit from it. So once you come in here, you of course read through these little notes if you may, and then get going with staking. Now, if you look at the first big change that we made, which hopefully is right up front, very easy to see, and also something that you find useful, is to call out the addresses of these three ingredients, if you may, or the three important parts that are involved in staking. So first things first, there is a LEV contract, right? The LEV tokens that get involved as a part of the staking process. And then there are the fee tokens, which also get distributed or dispersed as a part of the whole staking process. And then the third part, and of course the most important part, is the staking contract itself, which does all the heavy lifting of both collecting all the fees and then, of course, going through the staking process, managing it, and then dispersing at the end of it. And so what we've done is, instead of the previous one, where it was not absolutely clear or was not upfront, visible in terms of what those addresses are, we put them right here. So when you start, you know which addresses we're talking about. Now, this also becomes very important in our testnet environment. Not only is it important, sort of pointer in the production environment, but it's also absolutely important in the testnet environment. Why is this important in the testnet environment? Is because when you play with multiple environments, one of the things that can really get tricky is, hey, is my address correct? Am I talking about the same fee token or the same LEV contract token? Or am I talking about the same staking contract? And I think you can just avoid that confusion and stay focused and quickly reconcile and make sure your addresses are correct. The second part that we made visible right up top here, right, is the staking status. Now, this is also super important because as many of you involved in staking or have been listening to our webinars are probably aware and understand that staking goes through essentially a series of processes, if you may. And one of the most important parts of that is, what is typically called as a staking interval. So, for each round of staking, there's a staking interval. A staking starts, and then it goes through its motion, and then, sort of staking ends, if you may, for that part of the cycle. And that is determined by the number of blocks that we define for that staking period. And what this is telling you is, hey, how far are we in the current staking period? So, if you look at it, very obviously it says, hey, we are 309/4 block out of the 6,000 that we need to cover for this period. So the period consists of 6,000 blocks and, sort of midway there. Why is this important? Well, when you stake, your disbursement or overall earnings is a function of a few things. And a couple of important things in that is, of course, the amount of LEV that you stake. And the second is, of course, the amount of period or the length of the period that you stake it for. So this allows you to quickly eyeball, quickly understand, where are we in the staking period, and then you can make your own adjustment, right? So hopefully these additional pieces of information are helpful and something that you can make use of as you continue to stake. And then going down here, of course, we support the same two mechanisms that we had in the past. You can stake using your MetaMask, sort of wallet, if you may, or the process, or you can stake manually, which we made very explicit what that manually means. That here are the other options. You can use my Ether wallet or Mu, Parity, Mist, Jax, or any of those to stake. Let's walk through a little bit of the MetaMask flow. So as I go through stake using MetaMask, and I of course have MetaMask set up here. I have a little demo account which is funded, which has got a bunch of tokens, as you will see. And this is obviously on the Ropsten network. So the Ropsten is our playground. That's what connects with our testnet. And I'll just show you how this would walk through in the staking world. Now, some of this may take a little bit because, obviously it goes back to the blockchain and gets confirmed and gets, entered in there. So if some of these are taking a little longer, we will just walk through and continue. So as we go through it, the first thing, of course, is you can, look at your own Ethereum address, which it has picked up from MetaMask, and then it'll show some more information there. Now, what is this show information? What this really is doing is LEV balance do you have? how much leverage do you have, and then of course you'll go through the process of approving a portion of that amount of leverage that you own towards staking. And then once you approved a certain amount, you will take that entire amount or a sub part of that and stake that amount. So this is just giving you an initial snapshot of saying how much do you have. And what this is showing to me right now is that I've got 9,500 LEV available, which I think should reconcile here if I look at it. So that's 9,500 LEV in my account at the moment. And obviously I haven't staked anything, or I haven't approved any amount out of that. So I'm going to approve some now. And then the next part is, once I have a certain amount approved, I might either stake the entire amount or a sub part of it. And last but not the least, it's also picked up the amount of fee tokens that I have available right here. So out of my 9,500, let's just take 500 as an example, and go ahead and approve it. So as I approve it, obviously it's going to go through the process of getting confirmed on the blockchain. I'm going to give it a little extra gas. Hopefully that'll help. And I'm going through the usual mechanics. For all of you who are the usual users of MetaMask or these kinds of confirmations on the blockchain, this should be absolutely familiar. There's nothing extraordinary or out of the usual mechanics that you have. Now, what we did on via MetaMask is something that also gets printed right down here for your quick viewing, which says, hey, here's the address that we sent to, talks about some of the gas limits, etc. It looks like it's already done. So that was quick. And this may also be a function of the blockchain Ropsten network not being blocked at this hour. So that's good. So we've got 500 approved. And now let's move on to the next part of the process. So as we go through the next part of the process, I'm going to stake a certain portion of it. Now, this should actually update here. Perhaps it's taking a little bit for it to come back, because there would be a number of confirmations and then showing up there. So as we go through this process, I'm going to now stake a subpart of it. Now, before I go to staking, let me also show you another bit. Let's say for some reason you need to refresh your browser, or you went back somewhere else and you lost your flow here. Don't worry, you would come back to where you were. So if I just update this, this would do the same, sort of demonstration. So this would bring me back towards the initial screen. And now if I go back here and I say using MetaMask, because that's what I was using, I say show info, and now it shows, hey, 500 you already approved. What do you want to do? You want to approve more, or you want to stake? And in this case, of course, we want to keep moving forward and stake some of the 500 or all of the 500 that we have approved. So I'll go ahead with the stake workflow. And now, boom, it takes you straight to the staking part of the workflow, right? So don't worry, in case you were somehow in the middle of this process and then you lost track, or your browser window closed, or you updated it or refreshed it or moved back somewhere, you can easily come back, reload it, and this workflow will bring you back to where you were. Or of course, you could take a different segue and approve more if that's what you wanted. So out of this 500, I'm going to take 400 of this, okay, and let's just stake it, and let's see what happens. Now, should be very similar to how we did our approval process. Again, giving a little more gas and going through the same motion. And so now it's going through essentially this staking process. And what's really happening here is it's going to take the LEV that I've approved, and of course, a part of it that I've said I want to stake, and move that to the staking contract. Now, we are not going to walk through the staking mechanics here. Again, if you want to read through that or understand that, I highly encourage go back to some of our earlier webinars, and you will find a lot of great content there. So now I've done my staking part of the process, and I'm ready to sort of confirm and close the loop here. This says all good. I've got 500 LEV, which I approved, and 400 out of that was staked. Excuse me. What you don't see here is the number here, which it should. It's just taking a little bit to confirm and approve. but you should also see these getting updated. If you waited long enough on the LEV contract, fee address, staking address, they should have been there. And then, of course, the LEV part of the process. So that's the improvement. That's the sort of improvement that we made on the staking workflow. I do feel that this makes it more usable because the information is right up front, right? It's there for you to kind of use. It's visible, something that you can understand better and take control of as you walk through your staking process. And hopefully, this also adds a little bit of usability as well. For example, one thing that I mentioned was you can restart if you kind of stop midway. If you're confused about the addresses, again, you can quickly look that up or search, make sure they're correct. And then, of course, I think the feedback in terms of, hey, this is getting confirmed on the blockchain, or it's already confirmed, or the information visible is always helpful as you move forward. So if anybody has any questions about this, happy to take it, or I'll keep moving and move on to the second part of the conversation, which is around fee. And then, of course, we'll come back, as I mentioned, towards the end of the webinar and show how they all play together. So I might give like maybe a few seconds, maybe a minute at most, while I set up for the fee, if you may. Any questions, feel free to sort of put them on the channel. I believe Vilo advised you can put them on the YouTube chat, the YouTube live chat, or you could also, I guess, reach out via our other sort of social venues. You could reach out via Telegram or any other venue that you prefer.
All right, not seeing any questions just yet, but I have a question for you. So you mentioned that if you're using the staking app, of course, you are a LEV holder or you own LEV. How does one acquire LEV tokens?
Okay, wonderful. So let me answer that question in two parts, because there is, of course, the audience that is focused on testnet today, right, where you want to play with stuff. You're not necessarily yet ready for prime time, right? And then there is the audience, which are real LEV holders, LEV in production, LEV for real, if you may, and they may want to get involved in staking right up front, right away. Now, please do keep in mind that staking and the whole economics of staking makes sense when we start collecting fees, right? When we have our exchange live and we are earning fees from our exchange, the staking process essentially allows you to earn a part of that earnings, if you may. Now, since the exchange is not live, there obviously isn't real fees that is being collected. So while you can play with that staking process in production, you aren't going to see real fee coming to you until we go live. Now, having said that, let's start with testnet. So one of the things that you can do with testnet is just basically get to the LEV sale contract and get hold of some sample LEV. And this is the the LEV contract, if you may. And with the LEV contract is as simple as just sending this address some ETH. So this is the sale contract, and what does the sale contract do? Well, the sale contract receives Ethereum or ETH tokens and then has a conversion ratio and gives you back some LEV. So let's do that. Why don't we just see it? So I go to my MetaMask and use a simple process. I'm just going to send this some ETH. So here's the address, and I'm going to send it, let's say, 1 ETH, right? And let's go. So here, if I submit it, what I've really done is I put in a request, and here's the bit that's in process, right? And what I've done is I've sent a certain amount of ETH to the LEV sales contract, and then saying, okay, take this ETH and give me some LEV back. So that's what you can do in the testnet environment. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm not going to wait for it right now, although it looks like it's confirmed. So I may actually have my LEV tokens right away. And there you go. I think, yeah, I got a bunch of LEV here. So what it did was it took my ETH and then, essentially gave me 11 return. And you could do the same. So here's the address. We will also put this out on our usual social channels, and certainly on the beta testers group. And if anybody wants to, for some reason can't find that, just reach out to us. Ping us on Telegram, and if you're involved in testing, we'll make sure to give you this address, and then all you got to do is send it ETH and get some LEV. Hopefully that answers the question, Vilo.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right, perfect. So we saw, a little sort of faucet, if you may, or a sale contract in action. And the good part, and many thanks to our beta testers in some sense, where they were also wanting to get hold of fee and struggling a little bit, that inspired us to create a similar mechanism for the fee tokens as well. So we have a fee faucet. What this does is it does two things. One is it makes the whole process of getting hold of fee in the test environment far easier. And this will really be handy. It'll be handy for two reasons. One, of course, as you test out the mechanics of paying fees using fee tokens, or if you're trading with fee itself, because fee itself is a tradable token. So, if you want to play with trading fee against ETH, which would be one of the pairs that will support as and when we go live, at least that's the plan. You now in your testnet have a mechanism to get hold of some fee. So there is a fee faucet, and you can do the same thing, exact same thing, which is send it some ETH and it'll give you some feedback. Okay, so let's look at that too. So here's the address again. This one's the address, and this address sort of behaves in a similar fashion to the LEV sale contract that we looked at. This is the fee faucet, or the fee sale contract, if you may. And what it does is you give an ETH, and it gives you 1,000 feedback in return. So 1 to 1,000 sort of a translation that it does right now. So we go back here. This is the same address, this one. And this is the address that will act as the fee faucet. So I'll do exactly similar stuff. Essentially go up here, MetaMask, do the same thing. Again, I'll send 1 ETH, I should get 1,000 feedback. And give it some gas and let it roll, right? Now I should see more fee here. Now, of course, this is still getting processed, but as and when it gets processed, you will see more fee come in there. Now, what we'll see very soon, within the next few minutes, is how this comes into your account, which obviously it does from MetaMask, how you can submit that or deposit that into the Plasma balance or into the exchange Plasma balance, if you may, or the ledger, and then how you can play with it, right? Either trade with it or use it to pay fees. So we'll not wait for this, we'll keep moving, but you will see that it's taking a little longer. It says once more gas, but that'll eventually come through, and you will see that my fee tokens will increase from 500 as they stand right now to 1,500, because I have bought or acquired 1,000 additional right now in front of you. And actually this is done, looks like, so it should show me that, and there you go, boom, right? So 1,500. I've got a lot more fee tokens to play with. You can do the same thing. All you got to do is, again, take this address, take your test ETH, send it some ETH, and for every ETH that you send this fee faucet, you'll get 1,000 feedback. And then, of course, keep rolling from there. So now that you have fee, and this is something I just put out there, again, not going to walk through it, and you understand the staking mechanism, you understand what staking is all about in the process, which, to summarize, is essentially about a couple of things. One, fees being collected in the exchange, whether in fee tokens or ETH being sent to the staking contract. And then, of course, stakers, who are LEV holders, staking both the amount of LEV and for a certain period during a staking period on the staking contract, and then the two coming together, and then staking eventually disbursing or distributing the fees that it has collected for that period to all those people who had staked in a certain, using a certain math, which is really a function of the amount of LEV you staked and for how long you staked. and then you're all set. You earn some fee. So this part of the process, again, like I said, I believe you're familiar with. And now that you have test fee to play with, you can actually walk through the mechanics of this on your own after this webinar, and see how it plays out with the whole staking process in testnet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to segue into a second part of the whole fee token usage, which is we'll go to the exchange now, right? And we'll first look at the fee token that we have, how we can fund our account and the plasma balance with these new fee tokens that we acquired. What can we do with it, right? And one thing that we can certainly do with it is pay trading fees with that fee token. And then we will also take a little peek into the ledger and see how it all gets recorded. And once we've done all of that, I think you will get a good sense of how the fee token mechanism works. So let's jump right in. Let's go into our exchange. Here's our exchange. This is the testnet exchange, test.leverage.io. For again beta testers, this is probably a familiar site. You've been spending time and energy here, and we thank you. We thank you sincerely for doing that. It's very helpful, and keep helping us out. And the better we have in terms of testing and the robustness of the platform, the more enjoyable those features would be as we go live, in production. So let's go to our funds tab here. I'm already logged in with the same sort of credentials, the same MetaMask demo account. So let me just go right here in the funds and see how things look on my account balance, as well as what we call the plasma balance or the ledger balance, right? So what it's telling me is I've got three different sort of digital assets in my account. I've got some Ethereum, a test ETH to play with. I've got fee tokens, and I've got LEV tokens. And what this is really saying is I've got a total of, for example, ETH, this much, 47 something, and an additional 3 something. So this is the total that I have. And out of the 47, or not the 47, but around 50-ish that I had, I've transferred a certain portion onto Plasma. Now, what that really means is that this portion, which is the 3.99988, that much ETH is something I can use within the exchange. So this is something I have deposited to the ledger. So it's available there in the exchange, and all the gluon plasma mechanics will occur against this balance. Now, the gluon plasma mechanics does not touch this balance, the rest of it, because you haven't deposited it explicitly onto the ledger, right? Similarly, for fee token, I've got additional 1,500, 500 is already sitting there in the plasma balance. And then, a similar story for LEV, right? You got 19,100, and then, 500.1, if you may, sitting in the plasma balance. Now, what we'll do is we'll do one small bit here. I'm going to deposit some additional fee in the process, also show you how deposit is working here. And then, of course, we won't wait for it. There are a few things we make sure in terms of checks and safeguards as far as the deposit goes, but I would just quickly click through it anyway, and move on to seeing some of the ledger and what I can do with the fee that I have. So out of this 1,500, I'm going to transfer additional 500. So all I got to do is put additional 500 and deposit it. Here you go. And as I deposit 500 more, the same mechanics, I got to approve it. So I approve this via my MetaMask workflow, and now it's getting processed, and it'll pop up a second time as it goes through there you go, through the whole workflow. And I said, okay, wonderful, let's go transfer. Let's take the tokens, the fee tokens from my account and move it onto the plasma balance. So now what you'll end up seeing is I'll have 1,000 here sitting outside the plasma balance, in my wallet, and then 1,000 available within plasma. Now you won't see this immediately because, obviously we go through a certain number of block confirmations and a certain number of logic and ledger entry during the deposit process. And so that's something that will take a little bit for it to happen. Now, what you could do is you can look up your account and where you are in the ledger, and what's going on in the ledger against your account. So The easiest way to do that, or the right way to do that, if you may, is the following, right? And I'll show you that. Now, before I show that, you may have noticed that my wallet balance actually went down 500, but my plasma is still showing 500. So what's going on is the 500 that I said should be deposited has been withdrawn from my account. When I say withdrawn, it's in process, right? And now it's going through the confirmation process here. So very soon you'll see this as 1000. So now there'll be 1000 and 1000 on both sides. Okay. Going to the third part, which is my account. So this is my account. This is essentially my demo account. If you look at it, this is my demo account, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look for my entries in the ledger. So I want to see what's going on in the ledger, in the Gluon Plasma ledger. I've been doing a few things like depositing, various tokens, or you know, playing with certain other parts of trade. And now what is happening here is that is still not completely processed. It's not come to the ledger, so you don't see it yet, but it's going to show up soon. And in the meanwhile, let's do another thing, which we'll start seeing. So let's place a trade. And this time when we place a trade, we're going to use fee tokens to pay for our fees. Okay, so that's what I was trying to show here. And that'll take us to the story of bringing the two together, right? We've got trading going on. We are owners of fee tokens, and how can we use them to pay trading fees? So first things first, before we even place a trade and start using it, you may recall from our previous sort of webinars, and I will reiterate here, is that the choice of paying trading fees with fee token is an explicit choice. That is something that the users of our system will make as a part of their preference or as a part of their choice. Now, what happens if you do not own fee tokens, or you don't want to use your fee tokens to pay trading fees? Well, we will use your ETH balance, or you will implicitly allow the usage of your ETH balance within your Plasma to be used for paying trading fees, right? So you really have a choice. You can pay trading fees using ETH or using fee. Now, obviously, it makes sense to use fee because that's when both your overall costs as well as the ownership of fee tokens gets optimized. So the way you specify that today, and again, this might go through a little bit more of the usability hacks, if you may, and you might see this becoming even simpler. But today in the testnet, the way you can do that is simply click on this fee setting. And the part that is of relevance here is this portion with a checkbox, which says use fee balance to pay for trading fees. Now, all you got to do is just check it if that's what you want to do. If you want to pay trading fees using fee tokens, just check it, okay? And that's about it. I don't have to do anything else here. I'm all set. If I want to go back and see whether it worked or not, I could go back and check. Yes, it's checked. It's obviously persistent, in case you were wondering whether it is or not. And you can just refresh your browser, and that'll also give you a sense. And yes, it is. So it's all set. So now what I've basically made a choice, or made an election of saying, I've got some fee tokens, and please use my fee tokens to pay for fees, which is great. Now I'm going to place a trade. So let me quickly go through that. I'm going to place a quick trade here. And this is obviously I'm trading LEVs. So, I'll either buy or sell. And then once I have done that, what I've elected for is, hey, use my fee tokens to pay fees. So we'll quickly sort of walk through it. Perhaps in a future webinar, we can go into the details and mechanics of fee calculation. And obviously, we're going to have multiple sessions around Gluon Plasma and how fraud proofs and other things work in future. But let's get a glimpse of it. So this is our order book, right? For all of you who are traders and who are very familiar with this, this is the order book. I'm going to go right down here and use this value, which somebody's, one of the players here is selling at this. I'll go buy it. And if I buy it, I should be able to settle the trade. So either I can take the entire quantity, 1.2, or I can do a partial. Let me try a partial fill here and, just sort of buy it. Now, as I buy it, you see I've made, a new entry here, which is 1 at this price, and should have the fees. Now, this should match there. Oh, it's already matched. It's in the fields. I was in the fill tab. So, you see that it quickly matched. And of course, it would quickly match because, that was an open position. and I essentially placed a trade against that open position. What you also see is obviously this was a partial fill because this particular position, now it's probably moved. Yeah, it's right here. The 188 was 1.2, and I placed a counter position of 1. So, the 1 got filled and point 2 is still open. And, therefore, for taking. So the key part here is I placed a trade and I, have settled it if you may. Now, what should have happened is two things. Of course, the assets would have exchanged hands, but also a fee would have been calculated for me using fee. So let's look at that. So now, if I go here, and let me make sure my account is correct. Is my account correct? Yeah, that looks good. And that looks good too. Sometimes this can be tricky as you. So do I see something? Let me see here. Perhaps there's something in the account that I got to double check. This would. So give me a minute here. I want to make sure that all these entries are correct. Yeah, this is the entry, the demo account, and if I see here, this is the demo account. I want to make sure, and you can use similar mechanisms, by the way, just to match, to make sure in case there is confusion and you're using more than one account like me, testing things out. Sometimes you can just get caught up in that loop there. So here I've got I'm going to give this one more tug here. Normally it is self-updating, so it should be coming in right there on its own. But I'm going to give this a little tug, and we'll come back to it. I'll let this load. Let it just kind of get started. We can talk through the rest of it, and I'll come back to it and show you folks what the entries look like. We'll just give it a few seconds. There you go. There's the entry. Let's try it once just in case we have it. And there you go. Boom. All right. So it's actually there, which is great. I'm glad I reloaded it. It's supposed to reload on its own, but obviously this browser window was sitting a little stale and I have been moving around. So it's good for me to give it a little tug. Now, if you look at these entries, let's quickly sort of eyeball them. Again, the idea isn't to spend humongous amounts of time here, just trying to go through all the details. But first things first, you remember I deposited fee, right? And so if you remember, the amount of fee I deposited was 500. And what this has really done is obviously showing it down to the most divisible factor. Now, fee has total fidelity of 9 zeros, if you may, or 10 to the power 9. So that's why you see this. And what it's showing is it was an entry of type deposit. So that's now come in. If I wanted to see this back here, I could just go here in the funds, and now I should see it. And there you go, boom, right? Now, the other piece that gets visible right here is I had transferred 500. And if you remember, I originally had 500. So this should have been 1,000. But instead of 1,000, I have this number with a bunch of decimals, which is 999 dot, bunch of nines and then 06. What really happened here was a small portion of my 1,000 fee tokens that I own was deducted as fees, because that's what I said, right? I chose and elected to use my fee tokens, and I placed a trade and I filled one. So what ended up happening was that a small part of that was used to pay fees. Now, as I move through this, I will see some of those entries show up, right? So here's the trade. I think this is it. Yeah, that's right. So here's the trade, which is your trade at that price. If you remember, at least these numbers look very familiar. 188, that's the price that we went at, 188, right? And it was one of them. So obviously there are ledger entries for the changing of hands of the digital assets between ETH and LEV, but also there's an entry here which says, hey, a small amount of fee was deducted, right? And that's exactly what I was saying, that once you elect to pay your trading fees using fee tokens, obviously you would use that, and then you can also check that back in the ledger as you need to. So that's the little demonstration, if you may, of how you can both set your preferences around trading fees, and then you can actually place trades in testnet, and both look at your fund balances as well as make inquiries against the ledger, and you should be able to see all of the details and reconcile them all, and you'll see it in action. Now, what has happened here, to kind of conclude the story, is that this fee, that minuscule small amount of fee, right here that we collected, this fee, it has gone to a certain address. There's somebody who has received it, right? Like in this case, actually, it's this one, right? So this one gave this fee. This is my account, right? That's what I was searching for, my demo account. And then the same one, there's a corresponding entry. Somebody seems to have received this fee. Who is this somebody is the good question, right? And so this somebody is nobody but the staking contract. So the staking contract is the one that collects all the fees, right? And this is important to understand. We as exchange operators don't go and collect the fee. All the fee from trading actually goes to the staking contract. And now going back, just to kind of talk through the staking mechanics, if you remember, all the fee gets collected, then there are stakers on the other side of the puzzle, and then depending on the amount of LEV they have staked and for the period, they obviously own a part of these collections. So that's what's going on. Here is the sort of staking and fee economics in action. So you already got to see this. There's I don't have to explain anything here, but you're very welcome to go try it out. In fact, what I would highly encourage for all the beta testers and those who aren't beta testers but want to be beta testers, of course, reach out to Vilo via Telegram, and she will start the conversation with you and include you when the time is right. Go get hold of some test ETH that you can get from the Faucet, from Infudo, from Robston. Get hold of test LEV. You know how to get it, right? Go to our LEV sale contract or LEV Faucet. Send it some ETH. It'll give you some LEV back. Go get hold of some test fee tokens. Same mechanism. Get some of your test ETH. Send it to that contract, the fee Faucet. Get back some test fee. Then go to the exchange. Make sure to deposit some of all these things that you now have in your hand. Test ETH, test fee, test LEV. Deposit that into the Plasma balance, right, which goes on to the Gluon Plasma ledger. And then beyond that, next, right? So go set your preferences. Go check the box with use fee if you want to see fee in action or your fee tokens being used, and then go place a trade, right? And if you go to testnet, we have some live sort of trade going on to help you go and make some counter offers and settle some and see for yourself. And then of course you can go to the endpoint where you can go and look up your own ledger, your own entries, and you should be all set. So that's pretty much the story for now. What we will continue to do and what we would like to do is obviously keep delving into these kinds of more detailed analysis as we keep progressing towards production. And then what we would also like to do is, of course, get into the details of a lot of the other interesting, super interesting fraud-proof and ledger mechanics that will become available sooner rather than later, both through demo and to use. So we'll start walking through that in the future editions. So with that said, I think I'm pretty much done for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the session and you did get a good sense of all the different demos, if you may, around fee and LEV and staking and trading and looking at the ledger, and can have fun with it as you move forward. So that's it from me this morning. I'm going to hand it back to Vilo, and of course, if there are questions, I'm happy to take some. Bharat, Nirmal, they're all available. We can all jump in and answer your questions.
All right, so
Vilo, over to you.
Yeah. Looks like on 1 second. Yeah, looks like on Discord I got a question from somebody who apologized that they were not able to stick out throughout the entire webinar. Apparently there's some movement going on in the markets. Looks like a dump in Bitcoin or something. But the question, you kind of touched on this already, Shashank, was regarding how to get involved. And so, yeah, if you are looking to get involved in beta testing, go ahead and reach out to us on Telegram in our LEVERJ Telegram group. You can also reach out to any member directly, Discord, Twitter, wherever, and I will go ahead and get you a sign-up form via DM. And once we've got room to add new testers, which is a pretty regular thing, we've got a decent rotation in the beta testers group, I will go ahead and send you all the information and invite you, get you on the Trello boards, and you can get started working with us. So thanks for that one. Any other questions? Not that I'm seeing. I think it's a pretty volatile moment in the markets right now. All right, so Shashank, Nirmal, Bharat, any last things that anyone would like to say?
No, I'm good. Yeah, also good.
All right, thank you guys for that. All right, that about wraps it up. Thank you everybody for joining. Thanks again to our beta testers and our community. And we look forward to the coming 2 weeks and our next webinar. You all have a great weekend. Bye.